We've got to stop misinformation. Everyone is talking about it. Meanwhile, if Democrats need to completely flip the truth on its head, that's just part of a good, rigorous debate, is it not? Lately, everyone is concerned about Iran and their path to a nuclear weapon. At the October 2nd debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, moderator Margaret Brennan raised serious concerns about how close Iran is.
Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time.
That sounds real serious. They'd better do something about it, or blame Trump, whichever comes first. A short while later, Tim Walz does the latter, of course.
Do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Yeah, blame Trump for Iran. Margaret Brennan right here tries to back the governor's play as he tries to sell this polished turd to the public.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump.
In early September, General H.R. McMaster was on Real Time explaining the disastrous Obama-Biden-Iran policy. Bill Maher tried to quickly sell the idea that the dangerous situation with Iran could be Trump's fault. But McMaster wasn't about to dance for Maher. The general isn't even a big Trump fan, but he will say out loud that Trump got Iran right. I like a lot of what Maher does to stand up to the woke cultists, but he buried this video deep. I had a hard time refining it, and I had to record the interview from the TV to my camera. I've tried recording HBO with my PC before and ended up with only black screen and audio. So I apologize for the poor quality here.
Seem to have a lot of problems with both sides. I would describe it as reckless versus feckless. You think Trump...
Yeah, right.
Is that right? I mean, you think Trump is reckless, but you think Obama and Biden and Harris are feckless. Is that?
Well, I think their policies have been feckless, in particular in connection with Iran and the Middle East and the support for Israel. I think what has happened is when they came back into office, they resurrected the same failed policies of the Obama administration in connection with trying to welcome Iran back into the international order under the hope that Iran would moderate.
That only failed because Trump undid it. We never really tried it. And I never understood the buck up your, not your ass, excuse me, people's ass about, look, I would say we have 4 enemies in the world. We have China, we have Russia, we have North Korea, and we have Iran. Why are we applauding Iran? Hey, let's get 5. No.
It's the axis of aggressors.
Okay. You can't fight everybody at once. I would say if you're going to find 2 who you could bring into the family of nations, it's probably Russia and Iran. Because I don't think the populations of those countries want to be where they are now. China, too much of a surveillance state, too much of a dictatorship. North Korea is just a bad case of brainwashed people. Those aren't going to happen. The Iran deal, I mean, I have the things here. Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium was reduced by 98% until 2031. The R&D, research at existing facilities redesigned so they could not produce weapons-grade plutonium. International inspectors allowed to access any site in the country anytime they wanted. What do you want?
That's
I
all-
mean,
that's
this,
all- that's
this
all.
is what
No.
negotiations are. You're
No.
not going to do better than that.
No, actually,
And
actually, you could do a lot better than that by not
you
having
could,
it.
but not have the other side agree to it.
But I think sometimes what happens is our diplomats, when they're faced with the opportunity to get a deal, they think that they should just make concession after concession, and the deal itself is an achievement, when in fact, in this case, it was a political disaster. For the reason is that really none of those really weak parts of the agreement, because our sunset clause, were adhered to by the Iranians. As soon before the ink was dry, Bill, they said, hey, here's all the list of sites you can't visit. And so the verification regime was very weak. It essentially gave a regime who you cannot trust. We know that from a 4-decade
You
plus
can't trust
proxy war.
anybody. That's why you have this in the treaty.
But
It
it was inadequate verification,
Okay.
the sunset clause.
Right.
But what
All right.
happened was even worse than the agreement was the sanctions relief that went along with it, that transferred, $100 billion. Where's the $100 billion to the Iranians? And you know where that money went? Into the coffers of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, and then increased the stipend of Hamas, Hezbollah, the proxy army in Syria, the Hashd-e-Shaabi militias in Iraq, and the Houthis. And then when the Biden administration came in, they went back to that same playbook with actually kind of the same people. They undesignated the Houthis. How did that work out? They didn't enforce the Trump-era sanctions. That resulted in the transfer of about $80 billion into those coffers again. Remember, there were $6 billion sitting in Qatar to be transferred to the Iranians on the eve of the October 7th heinous attacks against Israel. So I think the words you used, feckless, that applies to the Biden administration.
I have one more important question I have to ask you. Illegal aliens.
Well, Maher sure got paddled. Then he went on to hide that clip like an Easter egg. I gotta say, I hate filming my TV. It looks like garbage. 9 years ago, Benjamin Netanyahu knew that the Obama-Iran deal was seriously problematic when it was being created, and even spoke to the UN General Assembly in October of 2015, passionately opposing the deal. This entire speech is on YouTube. Here's some parts of it.
And for those of you who believe that the deal in Vienna will bring a change in Iran's policy, just listen to what Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, said 5 days after the nuclear deal was reached. Quote, "Our policies towards the arrogant government of the United States will not change. The United States," he vowed, "will continue to be Iran's enemy." While giving the mullahs more money is likely to fuel more repression inside Iran, it will definitely fuel more aggression outside Iran. As the leader of a country defending itself every day against Iran's growing aggression, I wish I could take comfort in the claim that this deal blocks Iran's path to nuclear weapons. But I can't, because it doesn't. This deal does place several constraints on Iran's nuclear program, and rightly so, because the international community recognizes that Iran is so dangerous. But you see, here's the catch. Under this deal, if Iran doesn't change its behavior, in fact, if it becomes even more dangerous in the years to come, the most important constraints will still be automatically lifted by year 10 and by year 15. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs. That just doesn't make any sense. I've said that if Iran wants to be treated like a normal country, let it act like a normal country. But this deal will treat Iran like a normal country even if it remains a dark theocracy that conquers its neighbors, sponsors terrorism worldwide, and chants death to Israel, death to America.
So who is correct, General McMaster and Bibi, or Bill Maher and Tim Walz? I know which way I'm going. Anyway, we're counting the seconds before an Israeli retaliatory strike on Iran right before our election. Isn't that nice? Expect things with Iran to get a lot worse, and expect Democrats to increase their gaslighting and lies about who's at fault. Thanks for watching.